The year is 1982, October. The air smells of diesel and turned earth. A young engineer from Moline, Illinois sits at a kitchen table. His name is David. He wears a tie with the John Deere logo. The tie is a little too tight. He is sweating. In front of him is a ledger, bound in green leather. The pages are filled with neat, disciplined columns of numbers, written in pencil. He runs his finger down a column. Corn yields per acre, bushels, 1978, 1979, 1980. The numbers are 22% higher than the county average, 22%. He turns the page. Fuel consumption per hour, diesel. The numbers are 30% lower. He looks up from the book. Across the table sits an old man. His name is Thomas Cole. He is 64 years old. His face is a map of sun and wind. His right hand, calloused and thick, rests on the table. His left sleeve is pinned neatly at the elbow. One arm. Standing behind the engineer is another man, the local John Deere dealer, Frank Miller Jr. His father, Frank Sr., opened the dealership in '38. Frank Jr. looks nervous. He's seen the numbers before. He still doesn't quite believe them. The engineer, David, closes the ledger. A soft thud in the quiet kitchen. He says to Thomas Cole, "This is not possible. We have telemetry. We have computer models. Our new 50 series tractors with the best implements. They can't match these efficiency numbers. Not even close. What are you doing out here?" Thomas Cole doesn't answer. He just looks at Frank Jr., a long, quiet look. Frank Jr. clears his throat. He tells the engineer from Moline, "You should probably see the machine, the one he used until last year. It's in the main barn." This is a story about a machine, but it's also about a conversation that happened 36 years earlier, in a place that smelled of new paint and possibility, a conversation that changed the course of a man's life and the future of farming, because someone was told they didn't belong, and he decided to prove them wrong, not for a day, not for a year, but for the rest of his life. This channel tells the stories of people like Thomas Cole, the quiet ones, the ones who don't make speeches, the ones who answer doubt with work. If those are the stories you think are worth hearing, you should probably subscribe, because what happened in that barn, it changed everything. Let me take you back to March of 1946. The war was over. The men were coming home. Thomas Cole came home to 320 acres of Iowa dirt. His family had worked this same land since 1887. They had survived drought. They had survived the Depression. They had survived blight. The land was still there. The dirt was enough. Thomas came home different. He had left with 2 good arms. He came back with 1. A field hospital in France. Shrapnel. They saved his life. They couldn't save his arm. He learned to do things again, to button a shirt, to tie his shoes, to write with his right hand, though he'd been a lefty. He learned to live with the phantom limb, the itch he could never scratch, the cold he could never warm. He came home to a father who was tired. Old man Cole was 68. The work was getting to be too much for him. The farm was struggling. The equipment was old. A Farmall F20 from 1935. A stubborn, powerful beast of a machine. It took 2 strong arms to fight the steering wheel. 2 strong arms to work the levers. 2 strong arms to pull it back from the ditch when the front wheels bit wrong. Thomas tried. He drove it for a week. His right arm ached. His shoulder burned. He couldn't react fast enough. The rows were crooked. He almost rolled it twice. His father watched from the porch. He didn't say a word, just watched. At the end of the week, Thomas shut the machine down. He walked into the house. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the engineer would sit, decades later. He told his father, "I can't do it, not with that machine. I need something newer, something with hydraulics." His father nodded slowly. He knew the boy was right. He opened a tin box. Inside was the money they had saved, war bonds, a little cash from 2 good harvests, $2,400. It was everything they had. His father pushed the box across the table. "Go into town, see Frank Miller at the new Deere dealership. Get the best machine this money can buy." The next morning, Thomas Cole put on his good shirt. He drove the family's Ford pickup into town. The John Deere dealership was new. It gleamed on the edge of town. Big plate glass windows, green and yellow machines parked in a perfect, hopeful line. The smell hit him when he opened the door. Fresh paint, new rubber tires, oil, the smell of the future. Frank Miller stood behind the counter. He was a good man. Everyone in the county said so. Deacon at the church. Coached the Little League team. Fair prices, honest dealing. He was maybe 50. Strong, confident. He smiled when Thomas walked in. A real smile. He said, "Tommy, good to see you home, son. We were all praying for you." Thomas nodded, felt himself stand a little straighter. He said, "Mr. Miller, I came to buy a tractor." Frank's smile widened. "Well, you came to the right place. What are you looking for?" Thomas had done his homework. He had read the magazines. He knew what he wanted. The new Model M. It was smaller, nimbler, but it had the new touch-o-matic hydraulic system. You could lift an implement with one lever, with one finger almost. It was a miracle. He told Frank Miller what he wanted. He told him what he had to spend. He saw a flicker in Frank's eyes. Something shifted. The smile was still there, but it was different now, tighter. Frank leaned on the counter. He lowered his voice, like he was sharing a secret. "Tommy, that's a fine machine, a real fine machine, but it's a two-handed tractor." Thomas knew what was happening. He felt a cold dread creep up his spine. He said, "I know, but I've got a design, a way to modify the controls, run the clutch with my foot, weld an extension onto the hydraulic lever. I can make it work. I've got it all drawn out." He reached into his pocket for the sketch he'd made, on the back of an envelope. Frank Miller held up a hand, a gentle, dismissive gesture. He didn't look at the drawing. He looked at Thomas's pinned-up sleeve. He sighed, a deep, paternal sigh, the sigh of a man who knows better. He said the words then, the words that would echo in that room for the next 4 decades. "Son, you don't belong in here." Thomas froze. He felt the blood drain from his face. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the kindness, the genuine, unmistakable concern in Frank Miller's voice. This wasn't cruelty. This wasn't anger. It was certainty. Frank went on, his voice soft, reasonable. "I've been selling farm equipment for 20 years. I know what these machines can do. They're dangerous, son, even for a man with 2 good arms. A moment's hesitation, a wrong move. You get tangled in a PTO shaft, you roll it in a ditch. I am not going to be the man who sells your father the tractor that kills his only son. I can't do it. I won't." Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Not by an enemy, not by a rival, but by someone who genuinely believed they were protecting you. Someone who thought your dreams were a danger to you. That is the quietest, sharpest kind of pain, because you cannot fight it with anger. You cannot argue with its logic. It is a cage made of kindness. If you know that feeling, drop a comment below and tell us about it. Because what Thomas Cole did next is a lesson for anyone who has ever been told no. The dealership was silent. The only sound was the ticking of a big John Deere clock on the wall. Thomas just stood there. He felt the eyes of the other men in the shop. 2 mechanics in the back. Another farmer looking at plows. They had all heard. They were watching. He looked at Frank Miller. He saw the conviction in the man's eyes, the absolute certainty. Thomas didn't argue. He didn't yell. He didn't try to show him the drawing again. He just nodded. Once. He turned around, and he walked out the door. The bell above the door jingled softly behind him. He drove home. 10 miles of gravel roads. He didn't see the fields. He didn't see the sky. He just saw Frank Miller's kind, certain face. He walked back into the farmhouse. His father was at the table, waiting. He looked up. He saw his son's face. He knew. He asked, "Well?" Thomas sat down. He pushed the tin box back across the table. "He won't sell it to me. He says I'll kill myself with it. He thinks I don't belong on a tractor anymore." The kitchen was filled with a heavy silence, the silence of a dream dying. His father didn't say anything for a long time. He looked at his son's face. He looked at the pinned sleeve. Then he looked down at his own hands, hands that had worked this dirt for 60 years. He placed them flat on the oak table, the table his own grandfather had built. He leaned forward. His voice was quiet, but it was harder than steel. "They took your arm. In their war. On their soil. They sent you home with a medal and a pension check, and they think that is the end of the story. They will not take this from you. They will not take the dirt." He tapped the table with his finger. "The dirt is enough. Your grandfather pulled a plow with a mule on this land. My father broke this land with a steam engine that tried to kill him every morning. I farmed through the Dust Bowl with a machine held together by wire and prayer. We are still here. The dirt is enough." He stood up. He said, "Come with me." They walked out to the workshop, a small, cluttered building behind the barn. The air smelled of grease and rust and hard work. In the corner, under a dusty canvas, sat the old Farmall F20. Big iron wheels, a faded red engine. It looked like a sleeping animal. His father pulled the canvas off. He ran his hand over the cold metal of the fender. He said, "This machine doesn't know how many arms you have. It only knows the work. We will make it work for you." That night, Thomas Cole did not sleep. He sat at the kitchen table with a pencil and a pad of paper. He redesigned his idea, not for the new John Deere, for the old Farmall. The next morning, he didn't go to the fields. He went to see Gus. Gus was a mechanic in town. He had a small, greasy shop behind the grain elevator. He was a wizard with metal. He could fix anything. Gus had served in the war, too. A Seabee in the Pacific. He'd seen men with worse injuries build whole airfields. Thomas showed him the drawings. Gus looked at them. He chewed on a toothpick. He squinted at the F20. He walked around it. Twice. He kicked the tires. He said, "It's a crazy idea. The clutch pedal will have the wrong travel. You'll never get the right leverage on the throttle." Thomas's heart sank. Then Gus grinned, a smile full of grease and stained teeth. He said, "But I like crazy ideas. Let's get to work." For the next 2 months, they worked. They pulled the F20 into Gus's shop. They tore it down. They started with the steering. The F20 had a manual worm and gear system. It took muscle. Thomas couldn't afford to take his one good hand off the wheel. Gus found a power steering pump from a junked Dodge truck. They spent a week fabricating a bracket. They ran hydraulic lines. It was ugly. It leaked. But it worked. Thomas could turn the wheel lock to lock with one hand, while standing still. Next was the clutch, a heavy, spring-loaded foot pedal. It needed a man's full weight. They redesigned it. They added a secondary lever, a compound linkage. It multiplied the force. It meant the pedal had to travel further, but it took half the pressure to engage. They worked on the throttle, the brake levers, the hydraulic lift for the implements, which the F-20 didn't even have. They built one from scratch. A pump, a reservoir from an old oil drum, a single hydraulic ram. They moved every control, every lever, every pedal. They brought them all to the right side of the machine, within reach of one hand and 2 feet. Thomas sat on the iron seat day after day, telling Gus, a little to the left, an inch higher. The angle is wrong. It has to feel right. It has to be an extension of me. Gus would swear. He would throw a wrench. Then he would pick it up and cut and weld again. Finally, it was done. The tractor was a Frankenstein's monster of welds and brackets and hoses. It was painted 3 different shades of red and rust. It was the ugliest machine in the county. Gus wiped his hands on a rag. He said, "Well, there it is. It'll either work or it'll kill you." Thomas climbed onto the seat. His father was there. He had come to watch. He stood by the door of the shop, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. Thomas took a deep breath. He started the engine. The old farmall coughed to life, a cloud of blue smoke, a familiar, rumbling idle. He put his right hand on the modified steering wheel, his right foot on the new clutch pedal. He eased it into gear. He let the clutch out. The tractor lurched forward, out of the shop, into the sunlight. It worked. He drove it around the yard. It was clumsy, the controls were sensitive, but it worked. He could drive it. He could run it, with one arm. He stopped the tractor in front of his father. He looked down at the old man. His father looked up at him, and for the first time since Thomas had come home from the war, he saw his father's smile. The work began. The first year was hard, learning the new system, the muscle memory of a lifetime gone. He had to think about every turn, every shift. The neighbors watched. They talked at the co-op. They talked at church. Some felt pity. Poor Thomas Cole, trying so hard. It's a shame what the war did to him. Others were skeptical. Old man Cole is a fool, letting that boy on that death trap. He'll be bankrupt in a year. Frank Miller, the deer dealer, heard the talk. He felt a grim satisfaction. He had done the right thing. He had protected the boy. He drove past the Cole farm on his way home. He saw the crooked rows, the patches of weeds Thomas had missed. He shook his head, a sad, knowing shake of the head. But then, something started to change. By the second year, Thomas had mastered the machine. The clumsy movements became fluid. The tractor was no longer a machine he was operating. It was a part of him. His rows became straighter than anyone's in the county, because he never had to take his hand off the power steering wheel. He could make tiny, constant corrections. His turns at the end of each row were faster, tighter. He didn't have to wrestle with a gear shift and a steering wheel and a throttle. His hand stayed on the wheel. His feet did the rest. He was more efficient. He started to notice something else. He was less tired at the end of the day. His focus wasn't on fighting the machine. It was on the dirt, on the crops. His yields went up, just a little at first, 5%, then 10. The talk at the co-op started to change. It went from pity to curiosity, from curiosity to a grudging respect. They saw his wagons at the grain elevator. They saw how heavy they were. They saw him buying the 80 acres to the west of his father's land. The year was 1950. He paid for it in cash. Let me tell you about the next 30 years, because this is where the story of one man and one tractor becomes the story of an empire built on dirt and defiance. 1952. Thomas Cole buys another 40 acres, the old Henderson plot, overgrown with weeds. Everyone said it was useless. He clears it himself. He pays cash. 1955. A drought hits the county. Crops fail. Farmers are selling off land to stay afloat. Thomas Cole's yields are down, but they are still better than average. His efficiency means his costs are lower. He survives. He buys the 200 acres south of the creek. Cash. Frank Miller at the John Deere dealership sells 3 brand new tractors that year. He repossesses 7. He sees Thomas Cole in town. Thomas nods at him, polite, quiet. Frank nods back. He feels something he can't quite name. It isn't anger, it isn't regret, it's confusion. The world is not working the way he understands it. 1960. Thomas Cole now farms over 700 acres. He has 2 hired men. He buys a second tractor, another old farmall. He and Gus modify it, the same system. They are getting faster at it. It only takes them 3 weeks. He pays for the tractor and Gus's time. Cash. 1963. Frank Miller Jr. takes over the dealership from his father. Frank Sr. is retired. He spends his days fishing, and on Sundays, after church, he still drives past the Cole farm. The farm is immaculate. The fences are straight. The barns are painted. The fields are a deep, impossible green. He sees the 2 ugly red tractors moving across the land, like water bugs on a pond, efficient, relentless. He doesn't tell his son what he's thinking. He doesn't tell anyone. He just watches, the quiet witness. 1968. Thomas Cole is one of the first in the county to experiment with no-till farming. His modified tractors are perfect for it, precise, gentle on the soil. His yields jump again. He buys another 300 acres, the old Swanson place, the biggest farm on the west side of the river. He pays cash. 1975. Thomas Cole is 47 years old. He is the largest independent farmer in the county. He owns 1,500 acres, all of it paid for. No debt, no bank loans, no dependencies. He still drives the original F-20. The engine has been rebuilt 3 times. The seat is cracked and patched with silver tape. The welds Gus made are still holding. The steering lock, worn smooth and shiny from the palm of his one good hand. 1980. The farm crisis begins. Interest rates are skyrocketing. Commodity prices are collapsing. Farmers who expanded on credit are in trouble. The John Deere dealership is full of worried men, trying to renegotiate loans, trying to hold on. Frank Miller Jr. is stressed. He's a good man, like his father. He feels the weight of his community's pain. Thomas Cole doesn't come into the dealership. He has no loans. He weathers the storm. He doesn't buy more land. Instead, he co-signs a loan for his neighbor to keep the bank from foreclosing. He does it quietly. He doesn't ask for anything in return. The dirt is enough. Which brings us back to 1982, to that kitchen table. The young engineer from Moline, Illinois, David. He has seen the numbers in the ledger. He has heard the story from Frank Jr. Now, he is walking toward the main barn. Thomas Cole leads the way. Frank Jr. follows, and behind them, walking slowly, is Frank Miller Sr. He is 80 years old now, frail. He walks with a cane. His son had called him, told him the men from corporate were coming out to the coal place, told him he should be there. He didn't know why he had come, but he had to. He had to see. Thomas Cole slides the big barn door open. Sunlight streams in, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. And there it sits, the F-20. It's not behind glass. It's not a museum piece. It's a working machine. There is mud on the tires, grease on the engine block. The engineer, David, walks toward it. Slowly, reverently, like he's approaching an altar. He is silent. He walks around it. He touches the ugly welds, the strange linkages, the hydraulic hoses snaking around the engine. He sees the genius of it. The simple, brutal, undeniable genius. It's a closed-loop system. The driver never has to let go of the steering wheel. His hand guides the machine. His feet control everything else. It's not just a modification for a disabled man. It is a fundamentally better way to operate a tractor. More precise, more efficient, safer. He looks at Thomas Cole. His eyes are wide with awe. He says, "This is revolutionary. Why didn't you patent this? This could have changed everything. John Deere would have paid you millions for this." Thomas Cole looks at the tractor. His tractor. He runs his hand along the fender, the same way his father did all those years ago. He says, "It was never about the money. It was about the work. The work needed doing. So I did it." Then another voice speaks, a thin, reedy voice. Frank Miller Sr. has stepped out of the shadows. He is standing by the front wheel of the tractor. He is looking at the tangle of levers and rods by the driver's seat. He understands now. After 36 years, he finally understands. He had seen a crippled boy, a liability, a risk. He had not seen an engineer, an inventor, a visionary. He had looked at Thomas Cole and seen only what was missing. He had failed to see what was there. He turns his head. He looks at Thomas, a man he has not truly spoken to since 1946. His eyes are watery, full of the terrible clarity of old age. He doesn't say he's sorry. The words are too small for the chasm of years between them. Instead, he asks a simple question. His voice is barely a whisper. "Could you show me how it works?" The quiet devastation of that moment. The request was an admission, a surrender, a final, quiet reckoning. Thomas Cole looks at the old man. He sees no triumph in his eyes, only a deep, quiet sadness for the man Frank Miller could have been. The man who could have helped instead of judged. Thomas nods, slowly. He climbs up onto the iron seat, the seat that has been his throne for 4 decades. He starts the engine. The old farmall rumbles to life, and in the dusty light of the barn, with the men from the company that rejected him watching, Thomas Cole shows him how it works. The story doesn't end there, because a legacy is not what you build for yourself. It's what you leave for others. Deere & Company made Thomas Cole a significant offer. They wanted to buy the tractor. They wanted the rights to his system. He said no. He told the young engineer, David, "The design is not for sale, because it was never mine to sell. It belongs to anyone who needs it." 2 months later, an article appeared in a national farm journal. It was titled, "The Cole Control System." It included 10 pages of detailed drawings, schematics, instructions. Thomas Cole had published his entire invention, for free, for anyone to use. He started getting letters. from farmers who had lost arms in accidents, from veterans returning from Vietnam, from men and women who had been told they no longer belonged in the world of farming. He answered every letter. He helped them find mechanics like Gus. He helped them find the parts. He gave them his knowledge, his hope. In 1985, he worked with agricultural engineers at Iowa State University. They used his principles to develop the first modern joystick and foot pedal control systems for farm equipment. Systems designed for accessibility. Systems that are now standard on machines all over the world. He used the money from the university partnership to create a foundation, the Cole Agricultural Grant. It gives money to disabled veterans who want to start a farm. It has helped over 400 men and women get their start, to find their place on the dirt. One of them is a young woman in Kansas. She lost her leg in Afghanistan. She runs a 2,000-acre wheat farm. From a state-of-the-art combine she controls with her hands. In her workshop, on the wall above her workbench, there is a framed picture, a grainy black and white photo of a young man with one arm, standing proudly in front of an ugly red tractor. Frank Miller Sr. passed away in 1987. In his will, he left a small parcel of land to Thomas Cole, the 10 acres that bordered the dealership. There was a note with the deed. It had only 4 words. "You were right. I'm sorry." Thomas sold the land. He put the money into the foundation. Today, if you go to the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, in the Agriculture Wing, there is a special exhibit, The Machines That Fed a Nation. There is a McCormick Deering Reaper, a Case steam engine, and in the center of the room, under soft, warm lights, sits a Farmall F-20 from 1935. It is not restored. The paint is faded. The tires are worn. The welds are ugly. The plaque in front of it tells the story of Thomas Cole, a story of rejection, of ingenuity, of quiet, relentless persistence. School children walk by. They look at the strange machine. A young boy points. He asks his father, "Why is that tractor so messy?" His father kneels down. He reads the plaque. He tells his son, "Because it had work to do." And right now, at a desk, in an office, in a bank, someone is being told no. Someone with a dream is being told they are a risk. Someone with a vision is being told it's impossible. Someone is being judged on what is missing, not on what is there. The most dangerous limitation, the one that truly cripples us, is the one imposed by someone who genuinely believes they are protecting you. Certainty about another person's capabilities, delivered with kindness. It is a cage without bars. It cannot be fought with anger. It can only be disproven, with decades of work, with the quiet, undeniable proof of a life well lived, with the simple truth that has always been there, waiting in the soil beneath our feet. The dirt is enough. If this story reminded you of someone in your own life who refused to be told no, share it with them. Let them know you see their fight. And subscribe for more stories about the quiet heroes who shape our world, 1 acre at a time.